Trink Studios.
Welcome to Behind the Curtain with Big Breeze.
And Ferrari Expensive.
From script to set.
From lighting to sound.
Let's start your first feature film.
And show you how to do it the right way.
So if you're like me, you saw a movie that inspired you to want to make movies. So of course, you came up with an idea. Wrote a script. Let your friend proofread it. They said it was fire. You said, bet, I'm ready to shoot right now. Problem is, you're not a professional writer. And your friend's not a professional script reader. So let's start there. The key to our success is in honesty. Being honest about how much we know about filmmaking. How much do you know about photography? Or editing? What's your budget? Are your ducks in a row? It's not reasonable to have zero knowledge of boxing and get in the ring with Mike Tyson and expect good results. Sometimes it's as simple as being honest with yourself and saying, I need to learn more about filmmaking. Or getting on YouTube and doing some research, like typing in what to know before filming a movie and clicking this video, liking and subscribing and helping me to help you learn to learn. Of course, we can go out and shoot guerrilla style and record whatever and just put it out and hope for the movie to do well, but you can play the Mega Millions if you want those kind of odds. Or you can take it seriously and learn the most important skill, the skill of learning. And that normally starts with giving a and that's not something I can teach you. That's on you. So if you're still here watching this video, I'm gonna assume you genuinely care about the final product that you produce. Now let's get to it. So just having the idea of two brothers who came up in the hood and are now trying to get out of the hood, that would be just that, an idea, not a script or a screenplay. Not only that, it's not creative at all. And that goes back to being honest with yourself. Is this the most creative idea I can possibly come up with? Honest answers only. So, the hood movies we love like Menace, Belly, Boys in the Hood, hell, even Scarface all follow a 3-act structure. Firstly, they made you care about the main character. If not, whatever happens after has zero impact on the viewer if we don't care about the main character. So, let's use the 3-act structure to turn your creative idea into a dope script. From the beginning of the film, we need to get the audience to ask questions. We need to give them a reason to keep watching. Like, I think the butler is the killer. Or, I think the solar flares made the zombies. We need to be creative and entertaining right from the start. So a good professional, decent script typically breaks down into 3 acts. The setup, the confrontation, and the resolution. Act 1, the setup. Why should they keep watching? Act 1 should introduce the main characters, the world they live in, and the main conflict. Also, we should find out the main character's clear goals. Before Act 1 concludes, some sort of incident should happen that will act as a turning point and launch our protagonist into Act 2. Act 2, what is the main conflict? Act 2 consists of a rising action that leads to a midpoint and then turns into a crisis. Let's say a story about a cop who's tracking the killer of his murdered wife. Act 1's inciting incident will be his wife's murder. And the turning point would be his decision to track down the killer. The rising action of Act 2 would involve the investigation he does to track down the killer. Act 2 will raise the stakes of the protagonist, revealing the danger the cop has put himself in. By the story's midpoint, the cop will be fully immersed in his journey. The second act typically ends with another turning point that makes it seem as if the protagonist will fail. Like maybe the cop has gotten too close to the killer and has been wounded by one of his henchmen, allowing him to escape. Act 3, the resolution. When does the protagonist solve the conflict? The third act begins with the pre-climax. This consists of events leading up to a climactic confrontation in which the hero faces a point of no return. They must either prevail or perish. In our cop story, perhaps our hero is on the trail of the killer and has traced him to a dope spot. This launches us into an actual climax, where the detective apprehends his wife's killer, either taking him into custody or killing him. Finally, the story de-escalates into a denouement, where the events of the climax wind back down into normal life. For example, in The Matrix, Act 1 would be introducing all of the main characters, Neo, Trinity, Morpheus, the Oracle, especially Agent Smith. Neo takes the red pill and realizes he's living in a virtual reality. And then in Act 2, Neo started training with Morpheus, downloading skills. Major conflict number 1 would be meeting with the Oracle and being told he's not the one. Major conflict number 2 would be Morpheus was captured, and that's a major defeat. And they also find the traitor within during Act 2. Act 3, Neo and Trinity recuperate, and they gather weapons, and they go save Morpheus. The final climax of Act 3 would be Neo versus Smith one-on-one in a fight. The ending would be Neo accepting that he's the chosen one and flying off. So again, we have Act 1, the exposition, inciting action, and turning point into Act 2. Act 2, rising action, midpoint, turning point into Act 3. Act 3, pre-climax, climax, denouement. After writing your script, ask yourself, did you check these boxes? Now, let's move on with our finalized script.
But hold on, Breeze. You know we gotta tell them about the roll call on set, right?
Assuming we are filmmakers of the future and we're most likely the cameraman, director, and editor, if you're like me, you're wearing all the hats on set. If not, then yes, we need to hire someone with experience.
The first assistant director is calling the roll as follows. Final checks, please. Signal for any last minute adjustments, especially to hair, makeup, wardrobe, and props.
What's optional is,
Picture is up, followed by quiet, please, to alert everyone that the take is ready and imminent.
me personally, I normally say, quiet on the set. Next would be roll sound. The sound department will roll first, and after a second or two, the sound recordist will confirm that the recording equipment is running at the correct speed and is indeed recording by calling sound speed.
Roll camera. The camera operators or first assistant cameras will roll their camera, and immediately after their camera is confirmed is running at the correct speed will confirm speed. Marker. Knowing that all the cameras on set are rolling, the first AD will call marker. Hearing this, the second assistant camera will show the slate to all cameras and call the scene and take numbers so that these details are on the recording.
For example, scene 1, take 1A, mark.
Immediately after calling mark, they will audibly clap the two sticks of the slate together to make a synchronization point for audio.
However, if the slate is not visible in the frame, camera operators may call for second sticks, and the second assistant camera will fully mark the scene a second time, with the slate quickly taken out of the shot and the camera refocused or repointed as necessary for the opening frame. The camera operators call set to indicate that all is ready to capture the action. Of course, the next one will be
action sets the entire scene in motion. In capturing music videos, the playback or click is started first, and the actors get their cues from the click playback. Only the director or first assistant director calls out cut. But camera operators may also say cut to save storage if they know the take is unusable.
The operator may also call cut if the camera has rolled out. The operator will not cut if there are other cameras still rolling, or an interruption would ruin the actor's focus. After that, the roll call would be cut. After the director's first AD called cut, the first AD will check whether the director is happy with the take and conclude the roll with the direction, like,
that's a take 2.
if another take is required. If not, following that would be check the gate. If the director does not want another take, the first AD will call check the gate, a signal for first assistant cameras or camera operators to confirm that the camera has not malfunctioned during a take and that there is no hair or fluff in the aperture or the gate or on the sensor if the film is exposed.
When a camera has been checked, the call from first assistant cameras or camera operators will be clear gate. Then, if the setup is complete, the first AD may call moving on or next setup. These announcements cue all departments and all the ADs on set to the next steps they must take.
For example, reset and or back to one may require a reset of elements in the frame. And finally, wrap. That's a wrap usually means the shooting day is over. The director would say, that's a wrap for scene 8 to indicate that all shots for scene 8 are done. Or if it's a wrap for just a particular actor, you may say, that's a wrap for Kevin. And then that means Kevin may go home for the day.
Please note, not having a movie clapper or not using every single aspect of a roll call won't stop you from making a good project.
But communication is everything on set. If your friend's running the boom mic and you call audio and he can respond with recording or I'm hot or whatever you worked out on set, that's fine. Don't overcomplicate something that can already be complicated. Today though, most of us filmmakers are the director, cameraman, and editor, and most likely will be running with an AD on set. When we are wearing most of the hats, we take mental notes during production that carry over to post-production. So now that we're up to speed, let's break filmmaking down into a series of 3 parts: pre-production, production, and post-production. Pre-production. First, we're going to consider our script and our budget. We're going to make sure we got a 3-act structure, our script has continuity, consider what we can afford, and move forward to the storyboard. Assuming you're a filmmaker like me and wearing multiple hats on set, you're the one making the lens selection, handling the gear, etc. So the need to type on the picture what lens you're using is kind of unnecessary. You'll most likely want to skip this part, I know, but this step can save you a lot of money during production. Now, let's just think of the storyboard and shot list like a comic book. Each picture will represent each shot that the viewer sees on screen, and we'll see under each picture or above each picture what that character is saying or what we hear or feel in the scene. Third, we want to scout our locations. We want to map out how many locations and if we need permits or not. Fourth, we want to gather our cast and crew. We're going to do a casting call for auditions. We're going to gather our actors. We're going to hire a gaffer, grip, boom operators, director of photography, whatever we need that we lack. The fifth stage of pre-production, we're going to go on a table read. It may be Zoom calls or it may be in studio rehearsals, but we'll definitely go over our lines in their entirety to make sure everyone's on the same page, literally. Then, the sixth stage, we'll set our shoot dates. That'll push us on to the production phase. A, blocking. Being in control of your environment on set, communicating with the cast and crew during the dry run of the scene to see where everyone will be. Also, you can identify any potential issues with filming, as far as cords in the way, where shadows may land, or any unwanted noises, interior and exterior, and so on. B, lighting. If you need to match daylight, let's stay around 4,500 Kelvin. But let's put some respect on the lights and use the lighting to build the mood and tell the story. And if you don't know a lot about lighting, I'll just dive into a little bit of it right now. Professional video lighting techniques are used to create a desired mood, highlight important elements, and control shadows and contrast in a shot. These are some of the most common lighting techniques used in video production. 3-point lighting. This is a basic lighting setup that uses 3 lights, a key light, a fill light, and a backlight. The key light provides the main source of illumination. Fill light softens the shadows, and the backlight separates the subject from the background. Rim lighting. This technique involves placing a light behind the subject, which creates a bright rim around the edges and helps to separate them from the background. Side lighting. Side lighting is used to create dramatic, moody shots by illuminating the subject from the side, creating deep shadows and adding texture to their features. Top lighting. This technique involves placing a light above the subject, creating a bright, even illumination that eliminates shadows on their face. And then we have background lighting. Background lighting is used to add depth to a shot and highlight the background elements, or to make a background appear brighter than the foreground. Silhouette lighting. This technique is used to create a dramatic effect by lighting the subject from behind so that they are silhouetted against a bright background. Cross lighting. This technique involves placing 2 lights on opposite sides of the subject, creating a dramatic look by casting shadows in opposite directions. So with those in mind, we want to walk the entire space and choose which way we will point the camera. An industry standard to remember is shooting from the dark side or the shadow side of the person's face who is speaking, if it's a dialogue scene. But again, the lighting will be used to tell a story, so each scene may require a different setup to accommodate the vibe of the scene. After that, we'll turn off all the available lights that we can control to get a blank canvas to start with. If you walk on set and the lighting is perfect, then you may be able to skip this step. But keep in mind, the sun waits for no one, and as time passes, the lighting from the outside will change. So setting a light to 4,500 Kelvin and pointing it through a window or multiple windows may be necessary to maintain the daylight. Next, we'll turn off the lights in the other rooms that may spill into the scene. Then we'll set our key light, we'll set our fill and edge backlights. Then we'll turn on any other existing lights that we may want to play in the scene. Camera settings. Me personally, I always run a sensor cleaning and a pixel refresh before filming. Then we'll choose the appropriate lens for each scene. We'll do a white balance check after setting the lights, set our ISO, aperture, and shutter speed based on the scene, and be sure to set the frame rate to 24 frames per second for the cinema feel, and 60 to 120 frames per second for slow motion scenes. Mic check. We're going to check our audio levels on the audio recorder or the screen of the camera. Be sure to keep them between -12 decibels and -6 decibels. Also, record about 30 to 60 seconds of dead silence or room tone that will be used in post to mix with Foley later. Record. We will consider our shot sizes, shot height, and weight of the shot. We will open with establishing shots and move on to medium shots, close-ups, and over-the-shoulder shots while being mindful of the 180-degree rule. We will plan and execute motivated camera movements while utilizing the power of appropriate framing. And for appropriate framing, we have to consider the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is the process of dividing an image into thirds. This imaginary grid yields 9 segments with 4 intersection points. When you position the most important elements of your image at these intersections, you produce a much more natural image. It is also suggested any horizon is placed on either the top horizontal line or the bottom horizontal line. Off-center composition is pleasing to the eye because it's typically where the eyes go first. When there's a subject or object off-center, it also gives viewers the ability to interact with the space between them. This allows for interpretation and conversation between the subject and the background, as opposed to a fully centered subject. So basically, the rule of thirds grid is a way to use composition techniques that are in line with what's naturally pleasing to the eye, creatively using negative space, which goes back to the weight of the frame. So from there, while we're holding the camera and we're ready to move in action, we need to know our framing and motivated camera movement. Use your shot list to reference your motivated camera movement. Hopefully the shot list should contain some of these key techniques for framing, as in a single shot. When your shot captures one subject, this is known as a single shot. A 2-shot is a camera shot with 2 characters featured in the frame. 3-shot, clearly with 3 characters in the frame. Another element of camera shots to consider is the perspective of the shot. An over-the-shoulder shot shows your subject from behind the shoulder of another character because it emulates perspective. It's common in conversation and dialogue scenes. Over-the-hip shot. An over-the-hip shot is pretty much the same, but over the hip. A POV shot is a camera shot that shows the view from a character or an inanimate object, like a bullet whizzing through the air or a bowling ball rolling down the lane. A point of view shot shows us exactly what the character sees, but no hard and fast rule requires them to be from living creatures. So be creative. A POV shot is generally sandwiched between 2 other shots though. One, a camera shot of a character looking at something. Then we cut to our POV camera shot, and then we cut back to a camera shot showing the character's reaction. So always keep that in mind if you're going to use a POV shot. Make sure you got what comes before it and make sure you got what comes after. Then we have an insert shot. An insert shot can have many functions and often becomes the key shot in directing the audience's attention. If we see a character look at something, the proper shot after should show us what they see. So again, refer to your shot list for the required shots per scene, keeping these in mind. An establishing shot clearly shows the location, builds the tone and context. An extreme wide shot makes the subject appear smaller compared to the environment, emphasizing the location in relation to the characters. Wide shot balances subject and surroundings, contains a good amount of space above and below the subject. Full shot fills the frame, head to toe with some scenery features. Medium wide shot, roughly from the knee up. Cowboy shot, roughly from the thigh up. Registers action and emotion. Medium shot reveals subject in more detail. Waist to torso emphasizes more subject with visible surroundings. Medium close-up. Chest up favors the face, keeps the subject kinda distant. Close-up reveals the subject's emotions and reactions, fills the frame with a part of the subject, typically the face. Extreme close-up fills the frame with the subject close enough for viewers to pick up any tiny details unseen otherwise, like gun triggers, lips, eyes. For greater detail, sometimes it's shot with a macro lens. Camera angles. So again, it seems repetitive, but camera angles are different than camera height. So, a bird's eye view angle, which is equal to an aerial view, great for over-top area shots. High angle shot, the subject appears smaller, shorter, thinner, making surroundings more vast. Eye level camera angle, eye to eye shot, how you see the subject, great for facial detail expression and conveying emotion. Dutch angle shot, normally at an angle, but it creates an uneasy or tense view, gives the viewer a sense of something's not quite right. Low angle shots creates depth of field. The subject appears bigger, closer, wider, and taller, which gives them more power in the scene. Again, use these to tell the story properly. Record. After you record, review, approve, and repeat for the next scene. Post-production. First, we're going to do a data dump. Get all of your data backed up and onto the computer that you will be editing on. Editing will consist of film cutting, color grading, ADR and Foley, music, sound mixing, titles, credits, graphics, and we'll finalize and review. For film cutting, I'll go over a few of the commonly used ones. Standard cut. The standard cut, also known as the hard cut, is a classic editing technique where one scene goes to the next with no visual transition. J and L cut. A J cut is when the sound of a shot or scene plays before the next shot does. In other words, it's when the video trails the audio.
I can't, I gotta go home.
That's all it is. They're like the police department for wise guys.
L cuts are when the sound of a shot or scene transitions over the next shot even though it no longer matches the video. Oftentimes, it's when the audio trails the video.
Go back! Full throttle! Don't have to take this abuse much longer.
They don't serve fried chicken and watermelon on a daily basis in my mess hall. Yes, sir!
That you, John Wayne?
Match cuts. Match cuts are cuts that take visual, narrative, or symbolic compositions and transition them to a different frame. Cutting on action. Cutting on action or matching on action refers to film editing techniques where the editor cuts from one shot to another view that matches the first shot's action.
我要睇下你嘅武功有幾深。出招。如果我輸俾你嘅話，我今日鬼又拜你為師。睇到我功夫啊，試我腳法啊！
Jump cuts. Jump cuts are attention-seeking edits that are defined by quick, jarring transitions from shot to shot.
Hill. Look forward to meeting you anon. Cheerio. Nicholas, Frank again. One other thing about your cottage. It's not ready. Transitions are the connective tissue between scenes or shots. Very often, transitions are barely noticeable, but other times, you can get creative with transitions and use them as a storytelling aid. Fade. One example of a transition effect is a fade to black, which you can use to denote a sharp tonal shift between scenes. You might use it after a particularly emotional or action-heavy sequence to add a sense of closure before the next scene. Dissolve. You can use a dissolve transition effect when editing to indicate a flashback sequence, a character's memory, or a look into their thoughts. In the dissolve transition, a clip's visual slowly disintegrates until the next scene begins. Parallel editing or cross-cut editing. Parallel editing is a technique used in film and video where the main action is cut together with two or more different sets of action. The sets of action appear to happen at the same time as the main action. Cutaway shots and cut-ins. Cutaways are often more philosophical than technical. For example, short flashbacks are often structured around cutaways. The point of a cutaway is to either transport us to another place or time or to emphasize something is extremely important in a live setting. Cut-ins are when we cut from a shot into a closer element of that same shot. For example, say we have a wide shot of a character holding a book. If we want to emphasize what the character is reading, we may cut in to a shot of the book's cover. Montage. A montage is a series of intercut scenes that provide a narrative, often without dialogue. By cutting back and forth among various sequences, directors and editors can reveal how multiple storylines converge into a unified whole. Color grading. Color grading involves manipulating contrast, color, saturation, and other aspects to match scenes shot under different conditions, like blues for cold and red and oranges for a warmer look. ADR and Foley. Scenes where using dialogue is replaced by using dubbing also feature Foley sound. Automatic dialogue replacement, ADR, is the process in which voice sounds are recorded in post-production. This is done by a machine that runs the voice sounds with the film forward and backward to get the sound to run with the film. Music. This should be obvious, but at the same time taken seriously. The right music at the right time will hit way harder than random music that you download online and force into a scene. Sound mixing. Sound mixing is the process of adjusting audio levels of all of the sound in the film, from dialogue to Foley and the musical score. A sound mixer must tweak every single audio file in the movie in order to make it sound clear, crisp, and seamless. Titles. First impressions are everything, but they are also a chance to capture the tone and the mood of the project, and invest some creative energy to grab your audience from the very beginning. Credits. End credits don't require nearly as much creativity, but it wouldn't hurt. That being said, what you'll need to pay attention to here is accuracy and professionalism. Or you could just watch a film and look at the end credits and see which ones they're using. And finally, master and export for distribution format. Even though the post-production process may be coming to a close, you still need to worry about distribution. First, you'll need to make sure you have an M&E track, music and effects track. If you're trying to sell your film internationally, you'll need to provide a soundtrack without the English dialogue, so dubbing in a different language is possible. Also, a dialogue script. Again, if you're selling it to international buyers, you'll need to create a script with the exact time code for every word spoken. This way, the dubbing artist or person writing the subtitles knows where to put the dialogue on the screen. DCP, Digital Cinema Package. If you want to send your film out, make sure your film is on a hard drive, ready to be delivered. Create a digital cinema package that has the final copy of your movie encoded so it can be distributed to theaters. Most often, it will be a master MOV file or a master MP4 file that we render out, along with a separate audio file and an SRT file for closed captions. Now, of course, these same steps can be applied to a short film, TV series, commercial, or a music video. Again, which are pre-production, creative idea, budget, 3-act structured script, storyboard, location, cast and crew, table read, shoot dates. Production, block the scene, light the set and the subject, camera settings, shot size, angles, white balance, shutter speed, frame rate and framing, mic check, record, review, approve, and repeat for the next scenes. Post-production, data dump, edit, color grading, ADR and Foley, music, sound mixing, titles, credits, master and export for distribution.
Drink Studios.